Hey guys, before we start, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment if you have any feedback. Let's go to the story. I-26F. Never thought I'd be cut out of a will for something I had zero control over. But apparently, not sharing a few strands of DNA was all it took to erase nearly 2 decades of being a daughter. It's wild how fast things change when someone decides you're no longer theirs. My life flipped at 14, and not in the way you hope it might. No glow up, no magical turning point. Just a slow unraveling that started the day my mom remarried. She met Greg during one of her reinvent myself phases, and he came with a fully formed son, Zach, 17, arrogant, messy, and the walking embodiment of not my problem. The wedding wasn't even cold before things started to spiral. At first, it was little things. Dishes left in the sink that somehow got blamed on me. Shampoo vanishes like a magic trick. Greg's default mode was suspicion, and I was always the suspect. My mom? She was too busy making sure her new family didn't crumble under its own weirdness to notice what was happening. A year in, the baby announcement hit. Great. A new sibling. Renovations followed. Guess which room got turned into a nursery? Yup. Mine. I was pushed into the leftover guest room. Barely enough space to breathe. It was subtle, but the message was loud. You're not the priority anymore. Then came Noah. My half-brother. Greg's actual son. The golden child. And like clockwork, the favoritism kicked into overdrive. Zach dropped out of college and came crawling back home like a boomerang nobody asked for. Suddenly, there were parties, beer bottles in the sink, and his friends using the living room like a frat house. I complained. Greg rolled his eyes. My mom looked exhausted and mumbled things like, "He's just adjusting." I started staying late at school. Took every extracurricular activity I could find. Anything to delay going home to a place that felt like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Home wasn't home. It was where I got blamed for things I didn't do, overlooked when I needed support, and constantly reminded I wasn't really part of them. I remember one night especially, I got home late from study group and found a note on the fridge. Went out to dinner. Be back later. That was it. No invite. No heads up. Just gone. Like I didn't exist. After I turned 18, things hit a breaking point. Greg made it very clear that my part-time job was interfering with my academic performance, even though I was pulling straight S's. The truth? He just didn't like that I was gone too much to be micromanaged. Then, one night, I came home to find my room trashed. Zach had thrown a party while everyone was out. My stuff? Ruined. School project? Destroyed. Greg's reaction at breakfast? You should have been more responsible with your belongings. My mother? She gave me that familiar tired look and said something about letting things go. That was the last time I swallowed it. The decision didn't come with some dramatic door slam or screaming match. It came quietly while sitting on the floor of my closet, trying to scrub vodka out of the one nice shirt I owned. I was done. I found a small apartment near campus. Nothing fancy, just a studio with old tile and a door that stuck when it rained. But it was mine. Between my part-time job and what I'd been hoarding away for months, I had enough for 3 months of rent. That night, I made my choice. The next day, I told them. I sat Greg and my mom down after dinner. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. I'm moving out. You'd think I announced I was joining a cult. Greg laughed. Not just a chuckle, an actual laugh, like I just told the world's dumbest joke. You think you're ready to live on your own? Because you're 18. He looked at me like I was a stray dog that had learned a new trick. My mom didn't say a word. Just stared at the table like it had betrayed her. I've saved up. I've got a place. It's happening. I said it as plainly as I could, even though my heart was doing backflips. That's when the guilt trip started. Greg launched into a full-on monologue about how ungrateful I was, how I was abandoning my responsibilities. Noah looked up to me, and I was setting a terrible example. It was like he had a bingo card labeled emotional manipulation and wanted to hit every square. My mom just sighed, said things like, family sticks together, and you'll regret this. But I wouldn't. Not for a second. I packed slowly over the next few days. Every box felt like a step towards something bigger, even if that something scared me. The day I left, my mom came into my room while I was taping the last box shut. I braced for a fight. Instead, she asked if I needed more bubble wrap. We made small talk. That was it. Like we were avoiding the real conversation. Pretending this wasn't the end made it easier. And then I left. Locked the door behind me, carried 3 boxes and a duffel bag into a cab, and didn't look back. That first night in my new place? It was awful. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was loud. No footsteps. No TV. No crying baby. No shouting. Just me and my thoughts echoing off cheap drywall. But by the third night, something shifted. I could breathe. No more checking Greg's mood. No more wondering if Zach had thrown another party. I could sleep when I wanted. I could eat what I wanted. Exist without walking on eggshells. I finally had space to think. To feel. To be someone outside of whatever version of me they'd labeled inconvenient. Things weren't perfect, but they were mine. Work, school, rent, repeat. It was a grind, but I didn't care. I was building something. Slowly. Quietly. On my terms. And just when I started to feel stable again, the phone rang. It was my mom. I wasn't expecting a phone call. Things had been quiet for a few months. Just a few awkward check-ins, a handful of forced texts from my mom about birthdays and weather and how's school going. But this time, her voice was different. Lighter. Hesitant. She eased into the call like she was trying to trick me into stepping on a landmine. We've just been going over some paperwork, she said, like she was ordering coffee. You know. Tom's will. Just getting things in order. I didn't say much. I knew Greg, yeah. I'd finally stopped calling him my stepdad in my head, had been going through some health issues. But the idea of estate planning wasn't on my radar. I wasn't expecting anything, and that's not false modesty. I truly expected nothing. And then she said it. Just flat out. He's decided to leave everything to Zach and Noah. Just them. Because they're his biological children. No hesitation. No softness. Like she was reading a grocery list. It landed like a slap. Not because I cared about the money, but because it was the loudest, clearest confirmation yet. You were never part of this family. Not really. I forced out an I understand. I don't know how I kept my voice even. Maybe I'd already spent years practicing for this moment. She tried to soften the blow. Said things like, it's just legal stuff, you know? Doesn't change how we feel. But it did. It always had. We changed the subject. I don't even remember what we talked about after that. Weather? Classes? The cost of groceries? Doesn't matter. The conversation ended like it always did, with a half-hearted, we should talk more, and silence on both ends. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I wanted a share of some retirement account, but because I'd spent years doing mental gymnastics to justify my place in that house. And here was Greg, confirming with legal documents what I'd always suspected. I was optional. An asterisk. A placeholder until he got the family he wanted. I could have called him and demanded answers. Vent my frustration. But what would be the point? So I did nothing. I stopped visiting. Stopped answering every third text. Poured myself deeper into school, work, and the people in my life who actually saw me: friends, coworkers, professors. People who didn't share my blood but still chose me. The resentment didn't disappear overnight. It lingered. It surfaced in strange moments, like holidays or whenever I heard someone casually mention family dinner. But it faded slowly, replaced by something quieter and stronger. Peace. I wasn't part of their future. But maybe that was a blessing. And then, just when the wound had started to scar over, life threw me a twist I never saw coming. It was a random Tuesday afternoon when the email came through. Subject line, regarding the estate of Margaret Emerson. I almost deleted it. Thought it was spam. But something about the name tugged at a memory buried under years of family awkwardness. Margaret. My great-aunt. Technically, my dad's aunt, Greg's side. Someone I'd heard about in passing once or twice. The kind of relative you never actually meet but your parents mention vaguely in stories involving the phrase old money and eccentric. Turns out she'd passed away. And somehow, I was listed as her sole beneficiary. I called the number in the email, still convinced there'd been a mix-up. The man who answered introduced himself as her estate attorney, calm and meticulous. No mistake, he said. She named you specifically. Left a letter as well. I just sat there, stunned. We weren't close. Honestly, I barely remembered her. Maybe a birthday card when I was little, signed with flowery cursive. But now she'd left me everything. Everything. The lawyer's voice shifted when he started listing it out: properties, accounts, investments. Then came the number I wasn't ready for. Her trust totals just under $3 million. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I didn't even know how to feel. This woman I barely knew had left me more than my entire family ever gave me. A few days later, the letter arrived. Handwritten, creased, and smelling faintly of lavender. She wrote about independence. About recognizing something in me that reminded her of herself when she was younger, alone, underestimated, trying to carve out space where no one thought she belonged. She said I deserved the chance to build something on my own, that she'd been watching from a distance, quietly proud. I read it 3 times. Then I cried. Not because of the money. Because someone, somehow, had seen me. Really seen me. And believed I was worth something. I bought a house. Small, nothing flashy. But mine. Then I invested. Got advice. Built stability. And for a while, I told no one. Not Greg. Not my mom. Not Zach. Not anyone with my old last name. Because I knew exactly how they'd react. And I was right. I thought I could keep it quiet. I didn't post about it. Didn't buy anything flashy. Didn't change my number or disappear into some new tax bracket. I just lived a little easier. Paid off student loans. Stocked my fridge with things that didn't come from the dollar aisle. But secrets don't stay buried. Especially the ones worth money. It started with a message from a cousin I hadn't seen in 5 years, asking if I was doing okay, and if I wanted to catch up. Casual. Friendly. Transparent in the worst way. Then came my mom. She called like it was any other day. Made small talk for 5 minutes. Then dropped the line. We've been having a rough time lately. Greg's health has been getting worse. And, finances. I didn't say anything. Just listened. She circled it like a shark. Slow, circling, waiting for the right angle to strike. It didn't take long. Tom called next. Then Zach. Then, a handful of relatives who hadn't spoken to me since high school. Each one more subtle than the last, but all with the same undertone. How much of it can we have? One even said it outright. We're family. You'll help us out, right? Family. The word hit different when it came from people who made it very clear I was never really part of theirs. I didn't yell. I didn't send angry texts or post a dramatic call out on social media. I just stopped answering. For a brief moment, I doubted myself. Wondered if I was being cold, selfish, vindictive. But then I remembered the silence. The dismissiveness. The nights I'd sat alone while they went to dinner without me. The parties Zach threw in my room. The lectures. The will. When I had nothing, they didn't show up. Now that I had something, they showed up with open hands and hollow apologies. The one that stung the most. My mom's second call. She asked why I hadn't told her. Why I kept it from her. Why I was being so distant. I told her the truth. That the distance wasn't new. It had always been there. They just never noticed it until money gave it a name. She didn't like that answer. She said I was ungrateful. That I was letting money change me. No, Mom. The money didn't change me. You did. It escalated fast. One day it was guilt-trippy voicemails and backhanded messages about how families should support each other. The next, I was sitting across from my mother at a coffee shop, watching her stir cream into her latte like she hadn't just asked me for $1 million. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just happened. I thought I'd misheard. She didn't flinch. She said it like it was owed to her. Like my great-aunt's money had been a mistake that needed correcting. Technically, she said, it should have gone to your father. So it's mine. That's when I realized this wasn't just desperation. It was entitlement. I told her no. Calmly. Clearly. Her face didn't change. But her tone did. What started as pleading morphed into bitterness. Accusations. Insults. She said I was cold. Said I'd forgotten who loved me. Said Greg had sacrificed so much for me. Greg. The man who excluded me from his will because I wasn't his real kid. When I stood up to leave, she followed me outside and said she hoped I enjoyed stealing from my own family. I walked away without looking back. But it didn't stop there. Rumors started trickling in. Through cousins, mutual friends, old classmates. My mother was telling people I'd stolen the inheritance. That it had been meant for her. That I'd manipulated an old woman into changing her will. It was absurd. And then the letter arrived. An official-looking envelope. A fake law firm name. A demand. Equitable distribution of the estate. They were trying to sue me. My heart stopped for a second. I thought, they're serious. They're going to drag me to court. I called my attorney. He read the letter, paused, then started laughing. It was fake. The address was tied to a gutted office building under construction. The phone number? Disconnected. The name? No license. Just another attempt to scare me into handing it over. That was the final crack. They'd lied. Manipulated. Threatened. Fabricated an entire legal identity just to squeeze money out of me. And still, I felt guilty. I hated that part of myself, how deeply it was conditioned. To doubt my boundaries. I questioned if maybe I was being too harsh. That if I just gave a little, they'd stop. But they wouldn't. They never had. So I stopped replying. Stopped explaining. Cut the last thread. I took time off work. Went on a road trip with a few friends, someplace quiet, green, and far enough away that I could breathe without checking my phone. Somewhere between winding roads and unfamiliar towns, it finally hit me. They weren't my family. Not really. They were just the people I happened to grow up around. Family is supposed to be who shows up for you when you have nothing, not who circles when you suddenly have something they want. After the fake lawsuit fizzled out and the phone calls stopped, the silence felt strange. I wasn't used to peace. I kept waiting for the next attempt, the next guilt trip, the next manipulative message, the next half-hearted apology wrapped around a demand. But nothing came. For weeks. And then, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Messy. It was from Noah. 14 years old now. My half-brother. The kid they built a nursery for by gutting my room. The one I was supposed to be a role model for while being pushed out of my own life. His note was barely a paragraph, full of scratchy spelling and crossed-out words. I'm sorry for asking for money. I miss you. I don't like how Mom talks about you. I hope you're happy. I must have read it 10 times. We'd never had much of a relationship. I was already being shoved out by the time he learned how to tie his shoes. But he remembered me. He reached out. And something about that cracked the last layer of armor I didn't even know I was still wearing. We started texting. Casual stuff at first, school, video games, the shows he was into. Nothing heavy. No drama. But it was real. A connection. I didn't expect to rebuild bridges with anyone. Not after everything. But here was this kid, trying in his own quiet way. So I leaned in cautiously, but willingly. Everyone else? I let them go. Except I had one last thing to do. I wrote letters. One to Greg. One to my mom. One to Zach. One to every relative who called, texted, or tried to pry money out of me after years of silence. I didn't rant. Didn't accuse. I just told them what they'd done, how it felt, and how I was done pretending any of it had been okay. I mailed them all at once and didn't expect a single reply. I only got one. From Noah. Again. Thanks for sending that. It helped me understand things more. Can I come visit sometime? I said yes. Maybe he'd become a better version of the people who had raised him. Maybe we could write our definition of family. One that didn't involve guilt, or money, or conditions. As for the rest, they never responded. And I'm okay with that. Because now, I live in a home I chose. Surrounded by people who actually see me. Loved for who I am, not what I can provide. Margaret's inheritance didn't just give me money. It gave me clarity. And for the first time in my life, I finally feel like I belong, without having to beg for a seat at the table.